Welcome back to the Marketplace, which is, of course, your home of all the latest news, information, rumours and everything in between when it comes to NBL free agency. We are getting closer and closer to NBL 26. Summer League not too far away as well, which might round out a few of the signings for these teams. But at the moment, we're going through each team with their depth chart, who they've got, who they're looking at and what it all looks like for next season. Today, we focus in on the little island that could, the Tasmania JackJumpers. I'm Jack Heverin, Olgun, Uluc, the best newsbreaker in Australian basketball, and Pete Hooley from NBL.com.au are here. Gentlemen, the Tasmania JackJumpers are pretty organised at this point.
And I'm not going to call them a little island because that didn't go well for someone else about a year and a half ago.
Sorry, guys.
But look, they've done a good job in firstly nailing someone like Josh Bannan. That was one of their priorities going into free agency, and they got that done really, really early. And then even these two right here, Bannan, Nick Marshall, these were two of the priority signings for this team. When they had their list of players they wanted to sign, those guys were in sort of the first wave, and they got them both. So they're really, really excited about those two.
Yeah, I'm quietly really liking what the roster they're putting together. Knowing the play style, knowing the culture, knowing the way that Scott Roth likes to get the team to play and operate. I'm really excited to see what they can potentially be. Obviously, health is one thing. We talk about that with the JackJumpers a lot because of what has happened in recent years with the likes of Will Magnay, especially with Josh Bannan with his recent history. But without looking into all of that, the starting pieces that are there, it's a really good piece because I think the Bannan and Nick Marshall, getting guys with chips on their shoulder who want a change of scenery and to prove something, combined with Scott Roth's system, normally leads to good things. And I think Sean McDonald, he's proven that when he's healthy and on the court, that he can really hold it down and be a stud in that point.
Yeah, and they win when Sean McDonald played. The numbers back that up. The thing that interests, I think, me and a lot of Tassie fans at the moment is we look at this board and there's no imports on the board as yet. So there's a lot of room to get very, very good very quickly.
Well, the Milton Doyle one's the big conversation, right? And again, from what I understand, is the conversation is continuing to ongo in a positive manner, slowly getting towards a potential return for Milton Doyle. We understood there was other teams who popped up who wanted to acquire his services. Why wouldn't you? He's an all-NBL caliber player, one of the most clutch players in the league. My understanding is they're slowly getting towards potentially having a deal. Could that go the other way? Absolutely. That's just the nature of the business. And right now, it probably could go either way, but I'd still see that it might happen more so than it doesn't.
Yeah, the conversations, yeah, like you said, they're ongoing. I'd bet on it happening, but I wouldn't bet a ton on it happening. And it feels as though those inside the organisation are sort of, they're not entirely sure. Their confidence sort of, it grows and it wanes just from day to day, basically. But those conversations are still happening. Obviously, there's mutual interest. It's just about getting a deal done. And then it's about what you do with the other import spots. And there is another wing spot there. Now, I think there's a world where Anthony Drimick slides to the bench, and it's Sean McDonald, and then it's wing as two other import spots. And then, from what I understand, the door is still open for a Jordan Crawford return. I'd say it's unlikely. But as of now, there's no contract in front of him. But they're still in a situation where they might get to a point where they fill those two starter import spots, have Sean McDonald as their starting point guard, and then it's maybe we need a Jordan Crawford type as our backup guard, someone who can give some offensive juice off the bench. So the door is still open. I'd say it's just ajar right now.
And outside of Milton Doyle, that other import, from what I understand, is they are getting very close to getting that name they want, that piece they have. So hypothetically, you're looking at a starting lineup, and it could look very strong with Bannan and Magnay holding it down with Juk Deng off the bench, but just the way they play as well. I mean, Will Magnay is one of the most dominant big men in the league. So to get him back there, Sean McDonald, there's your bookend starting fives, a couple of imports alongside Josh Bannan, and that's a really, really strong starting five.
So just before we get to Bannan, they've got some coverage with Air and Marshall in the point guard and shooting guard spots off the bench. And if you're talking, as you both have, that they bring in an import, it slides Drimick to the bench as well. So they're pretty well covered there. They have lost Fabian Krislovic, who played some meaningful minutes for them in the last few years. Is that an area of focus for them, whether that's import or local, but just having some coverage for Will Magnay?
Yeah, it sounds local. It sounds like there are some local big men that they are speaking to and that they are considering in that backup five spot. That's the direction I expected them to go. When we first started recording these marketplaces, I was at a point where I wondered, could they go and get that 4-5 type, that Mikhail McIntosh type that they used to go after? Doesn't seem like that's the direction they'll go down. It sounds like there are some 5 men who they are considering at that spot. And then it's using that other import spot on that sort of backup point guard, backup combo guard sort of thing. similar to what Melbourne United is going after. We spoke about them last episode. They're going after a similar sort of priced and skill level and skill type of backup combo.
And without knowing too much about the import they're seemingly closing in on the wing, it wouldn't surprise me if it is someone who could slide down to the 4. We've seen Josh Bannan hold it down to the 5 for some minutes if need be. Same with Majuk Deng. So there's that versatility to be undersized from one aspect of it, but strength-wise, what Josh Bannan can do, but then length-wise, what Majuk Deng, if that import had the capabilities of being a 3-4 type. But yeah, it's something that I'm really liking what they're building in the blueprint, and it doesn't seem like if Milton Doyle doesn't eventuate, that they would be shocked and left stunned, that they'd be able to pivot and go somewhere else if that happened.
So here's a little bit of Josh Bannan. It was one of the first names that dropped during free agency, so it's not new news, but we haven't really had the chance to talk about his role and his ceiling with Tasmania as yet. He came to the Brisbane Bullets after college as being touted as one of the highest potential Australian players that we've had in a little while. His body's let him down multiple times. He spent a little bit of time playing in France in the winter at the moment. What should expectations be for this young man from JackJumpers fans?
Look, think of what Jack White looked like in his maybe second season with Melbourne United. Think of what Luke Travers was, in his final season in Perth. Someone who I think can get a bit more usage than we've seen from him in previous years, and basically do all the little things. He's someone who can even carry the ball in stretches. Can he bring the ball up the floor and initiate offense? It's something that Melbourne United saw in him when he first came to the NBL. So I think we'll see a little bit more usage out of him and see him play across multiple positions. We saw him at the end of the season with Brisbane when a lot of their bigs got injured. He slid up to the 5 spot, and I think he was really, really effective. I think he has a desire to play a bit on the wing as well and see how he can improve that game. The jump shot needs to get there, it needs to be consistent, and obviously the health needs to be consistent too. But there is the bones of a really, really impressive and useful player in the NBL there.
When I have to think, if you gave me a blank slate of all the teams and said, where does Josh Bannan perfectly suit, it's hard to look past Tasmania. Yeah. I really feel like this is a match made in heaven because you just look at the way he plays, the ultimate trust guy, and that's the way that the JackJumpers have thrived. They execute better than anybody else. They out-hustle everybody first on the floor. Defensively, they're really sound, and that's all the boxes that Josh Bannan ticks. He's going to be in the right spots. He's going to set hard screens. He's going to roll. He's not going to do anything that he can't do. He's not going to be turning the ball over a whole lot in making too many bad decisions, and I think that's exactly where he fits in this Scott Roth system. They nail those couple of import spots, and this is a really solid group.
So just reading between the lines of you two as we start to wrap up, judging from what you both said, it looks like Tasmania could do a couple of things sooner rather than later. Will they be one of these teams who make some signings soon as opposed to waiting until Summer League?
I don't think Summer League's the way they like. Scott Roth's not a Summer League operator. He popped in a little bit last year, I think it was, or the year before. I think they'll try and get it done sooner than that because they're also a team that likes to have everybody together sooner in the pre-season. We know they had that tour last year that kind of derailed the start of their season, but having everybody together to understand and buy in, more than likely than heading over and trying to go shopping in Vegas.
Yeah, I think they'll have a presence at Summer League, but I don't think they're going to wait until Summer League to get those final recruits. It seems like they're a team that will probably do their work early, and like Pete said, that other sort of wing spot is something that we can envision happening sometime soon, but also all eyes are still on Milton Doyle and that negotiation and whether they're able to get that done because that's what the team really wants to happen.
And some of those other young, just like bench spots, I mean, we saw Walter Brown got a mutual release from his contract with the JackJumpers, but we saw what Nick Stoddart did last year, what he's doing this year in the NBL 1 South. It seems like from history, what that tells us with a young guy comes in for the JackJumpers, they like to keep them and continue to let them blossom, that he would end up back there as well just to kind of fill out some of that extra juice around the sides. And it'll be fun to see what else comes to the front.
They're building nicely at the moment, the Tasmania JackJumpers, and they might be a team who have got some more information sooner rather than later. We might be back in this studio talking JJs very soon. Olgun, Pete, thank you for being here as always. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
NBL.com.au is where you need to land, and of course the NBL app for the latest news and information during the free agency period. And of course, you can follow both of these lads on social media as well. Until next time, thanks for joining us on The Marketplace.